Okay, hello everyone. It's 2:01 and we're gonna go ahead and start this session. Um, my name is Mona. On behalf of the Selective Mutism Foundation in Canada, I would like to welcome everyone to your very own SM Q&A today. Today we'll be having two sessions. You're joining our first session of this series with a duration of 60 minutes. So before we begin, I would like to let you know that this session is being recorded and it will be shared on the SMF website, which I will put into the chat so you can access and perhaps re-listen later on. If you're more comfortable turning off your cameras, please do so. If you prefer using the chat section to type in your questions instead of talking, you are more than welcome to do that. We are so happy to be here and see so many of you join our wonderful SM community today. We would love to know where you are from, so please pop that into the chat. Who are you here for? And perhaps the age of the child or the individual you are supporting. Okay, let me go to the chats, see if there's anything there. Okay. So we'll begin. So now each of the coaches will introduce themselves and speak a little bit about their personal experiences with selective mutism. I just read we have someone from Toronto, Ontario with a 4-year-old. Welcome. Um, so we'll introduce ourselves and tell you guys a little bit about our personal experiences with selective mutism, and then we'll open the floor for you, the viewers, to ask any questions that you may have. Let's say if you're having struggles assisting your child in certain contexts, feel free to ask for advice or suggestions. And remember, there are no bad or wrong or silly questions. This is a safe space to share your concerns and worries. Okay, so without further ado, we do have, I'm just going to read in the chat as well here, someone from Belgium, Scotland, Britain. Wow, we're very international. Okay, so without further ado, let's get to it. I will pass it over to Anna to introduce herself.
Thank you so much for having me here, and it's so lovely to connect with everybody around. For those of you who's never met me or never seen me on YouTube, I'm Anna Biavati. I'm a multilingual speech and language therapist, and I am connecting from Edinburgh in Scotland. I am also a mom of what I would call a Miss 17, and she recovered from SM round about the age of 6 or 7. That would be roughly the second or third year in primary school. I was never taught, or I was never actually heard the word selective mutism when I went to university second time round. And I remember very clearly my very first child that came through, and the mom had a video because she felt that maybe I wouldn't have believed her that her child was speaking at home but not outside. And that was 18 years ago, so actually a year before I became mum second time round. And I have really made it my passion to help children finding their voice. I have created, I would say, 2 key framework, which one is the Brave Muscle method and the other one is the brain function approach. And I really base the way I work in teaching parents, carers, teachers, and professionals to build self-esteem, build confidence, resilience, and emotional regulation, starting from what they can do rather than focusing on speech. And I know that a lot of people say, Anna, but you're a speech therapist. But that's where I believe in not focusing on what it sounds, but in communication. And here in the UK, we have a key role, but we always welcome all the professionals, whatever capacity you're in, to inform yourself and to understand that selective mutism is not a choice. I believe in the family dynamic approach, which I feel that everybody is in it. So when my daughter, well, somebody told me, do you know that your child doesn't speak in front of others or when you're not around? I was already a specialist. I had noticed because, you know, she was speaking Italian to me and she was speaking English to her dad, but, you know, I didn't see very much of it. And they said, oh, well, when you're not around, there is not a peep. I was stunned. So there was nobody at that time that, you know, I could say, well, I can't be the mom and the therapist, but I had to. And I thought, it's not about being the therapist. It's about providing, you know, the right information and the right support for the people around her. So that's why I thought, well, yeah, I'm going to do that very much for all the parents and that, you know, require that support. So if I've managed, you know, every other parent can.
Thank you so much, Anna, for sharing. I'm going to pass it over to Toni to introduce herself.
Ah, okay. Hi, everyone. I'm from New Zealand. We actually say kia ora over here for hello. Just a little bit of Māori for you. My name is Toni Pakula, and I'm a mum of 3 children. 2 of my children are now, well, almost adults. So my son is 17, my daughter is 18, youngest is soon to be 11. And each of my children have struggled with selective mutism at various points. They've all presented a little differently. So my daughter was what at the time we used to say there was a spectrum. I think school of thought is starting to change a bit now. And so, but at the time, my daughter would have kind of been noted as having high profile selective mutism, so meaning she couldn't speak in most contexts outside of the home, and of course that showed up immediately in school. And my son was classified as low profile because he kind of went under the radar for a while, where he could whisper and he could answer his teacher with 1 word or with a nod and things like that. And my youngest, it was just like my daughter, but by the time he come along and I understood selective mutism, he's actually not presenting with selective mutism at the moment. He's just extremely highly sensitive individual, as we all are. So I'm based in New Zealand, and I'm a holistic selective mutism coach. I've done lots of study to help support my children because, like Anna, at the time I'd never heard of selective mutism before. And when I looked for support for my daughter when she was 6, there wasn't any. And I did go and see a psychologist in regards to her not speaking in school. And the psychologist said, oh, yay, you found Maggie Johnson's resource manual. Use that. And yes, she does have selective mutism, but you'll be all right. Goodbye. And that was my support. So it wasn't very in depth at the time. And so I, like you, Anna, I researched a lot and I really become my child's, and for want of a better word, therapist, but well, her mum, but her support and researcher, etc. And through our journey, I really learned a lot. So I looked at selective mutism through a holistic lens and not just that my daughter can't speak, but actually I noticed there were other things that were going on as well. That's also, in my opinion, a part of selective mutism. So she's highly sensitive. All 3 of my children are. She had some sensory issues as well. She's very perfectionistic. All sorts of, all the different kind of characteristics. So I really went down the different rabbit holes to see how I could help her. That wasn't just your top-down traditional behaviorist approach, because I felt she needed a whole kind of approach. And so I've looked into nutrition. So I'm a nutritionist coach, as well as understanding selective mutism and through neuroscience, and a safe and sound protocol practitioner as well. And I also work with schools and parents and helping to bridge those relationships in that environment and help parents with IEP plans, etc. So I won't go on more because I feel I've already taken up lots of time. But nice to meet you all, and I'm looking forward to hearing and helping you with any questions that come up. Yeah.
Thanks
there
so
you go.
much. Thank you so much, Toni, for that, for introducing yourself. And I'll pass it over to Effie.
Hi, I'm Effie Lavore. Thanks everyone for being here. This is really special. I'm in Los Angeles, so I guess I'm the outlier. Mona, I guess you're in the United States. It's amazing to see so many international folks here. I have a third grade daughter who is diagnosed SM. She was diagnosed in first grade, but she had problems before that. Like Anna was talking about, we had no idea, and found out her kinder year, I think maybe 4 or 5 months into her kinder year, that she was not speaking to the teacher. She she wasn't eating because she wasn't able to ask for food at the cafeteria. I had no idea. And she was also, unfortunately, on a couple of occasions had accidents because she couldn't ask to go to the bathroom. And we had no idea because she was this chatty, just vibrant, completely ebullient child at home. So that kind of started the process. We did have her assessed. Y'all are so progressive over in the rest of the world because like there's very little awareness, I feel like, of SM. We had her assessed by her SLP. She missed it. She was like, she seems to have language ability, so she's not, she's not eligible for my services. We got her into therapy, traditional therapy, which, 8 months later, she still hadn't made any progress, hadn't said a word. And it was a fellow parent at school who approached me after drop off and said, "Hey, I heard that my son says your daughter doesn't speak in class." And, I got all defensive and I was like, "Yeah," and she was like, "Well, just so you know, like my daughter had selective mutism, and if it's ever something you want to talk about, I have plenty of resources." And I'd heard of SM, but I figured it was, for kids who were exposed to a lot of trauma, and like that wasn't my kid. I went home and researched, like both Toni and Anna were saying. I did my Google research and I was like, yeah, that's my girl. So we here in Southern California have some resources for SM, but like I said, there's a lot of misunderstanding around it. So as soon as we knew that this is what we were dealing with, we got her into an SM camp. I mobilized big time, did about 18 months of pretty intensive work with her school out in the community, doing pretty simple interventions, but just constantly working with her. And she is now giving, it makes me want to cry. She's in third grade, but she is now giving presentations in front of school and singing karaoke at like new friends' houses, that happened a couple weekends ago. So as a mental health practitioner, I'm also a professional certified life coach, and I work with mamas of SM kids. And we work on your anxiety because parents of SM kids are 2 to 3 times as likely to also have an anxiety disorder. There's a correlation there. It's not causation. We didn't cause our kids anxiety. But when I started really working on my own anxiety, I noticed that it made everything easier for my girl, and it made it easier for me to be able to show up for her and to accept her as she was, right? And then be able to just patiently move forward with whatever her path was. So that's my story. Happy to answer any questions. Happy to hear from Anna and Toni, and thanks for letting me be here.
Thank you so much. And yes, I feel like with these stories, we all get emotional. So thank you so much for sharing. So I'm going to open the floor to any questions that anyone might have. And again, just a reminder that this session is being recorded. If you wish, you can type in your questions and I can read them out. If you would like to use your voice, there's an option to raise your hand down at the very bottom in the middle. You can raise your hand and yeah, we are here for you. So please go ahead.
As we wait, I'd like to really bring everybody's attention to, we're not here to, I suppose none of us, to say who caused this, why us. And I think that Effie said something which is amazing. It makes me actually really emotional, is to accept. Because, I base my work on neuroscience, and something that was such the biggest haha moment for me is to look at the way the brain works when we say, I don't want it. So that is something that somebody offers to you, or something that is about you or people around you. When you say, I don't want it, it bounces back even bigger because the brain wants to find the solution. And then it becomes this huge thing. But the moment that we do that to ourselves and we teach our children to say, oh, I notice, I can see this. Okay, right. I might not like it, but it's part of me. The brain does not get obsessed about it. But what has happened in the past 17 years for me is always concentrating on just say one thing, or why can't my child do that? What have I done? I don't want it. This is just terrible for us. It's just, and I don't want to sound like a super fairy and going, oh, everything is amazing, but it's just seeing, accepting, and looking at it as a superpower rather than I don't want it. So I think it was really powerful, Effie, what you said.
Yeah, for sure. That is very powerful. There is a question in the chat. It says, please, can you explain the brave talking method that you mentioned?
I suppose that is for me. Yeah. So my method really comes from many years of experience, and I believe that the brain is a muscle, and anything that is in it is the tiny little muscles that we develop in our body. So following many experts like Maggie Johnson's, Natasha Daniels, Irene Lyons, I can name so many. In fact, there is now it will come to me. This is one of my superpowers, is that I don't always remember names. I wanted to bring together everything. So the brave muscle is the fact that we are developing a skill, and the skill is being brave in recognizing who we are, but who we are as a family. But like Toni, I also integrate movements, and there are primitive rhythmic movements, and there are practical brain-based strategies that would support the family, so not just your child, but the family nervous system in order to regulate it. And one of the things that a lot of people don't talk about is the fact that there isn't that connection, or we don't concentrate a lot about the connection between the brain and our heart, the brain and our body. It's like a disconnection. And guess what? The voice is right in the middle. That's the bridge. So I called it the brave muscle method because it was always, as I said, I wanted to go away from the word talking, because communication, when we look at children, is way more than saying hi. It's moving the muscles around our face, our eyes open when we like something, the fact that we need to point, that's another muscle. So I kind of felt that it's an incorporation of communication and muscles across. And one of the things when we look at the scale of confident speaking is that when you're 0, so this is what we use in the UK. So it goes from 0 to 8. Whereas Dr. Eliza Shippen-Blum, she uses the bridge, so it's maybe 4 stages. But in stage 0, I would say all the way up to 4, something that is mentioned is the freeze response. So children, they don't move, they don't even blink, they look down. I have supported children that could stand for the whole day in school. They couldn't even sit down. This is the extreme of the brain is just jeopardizing and it not sending any signal that you can move. So I kind of felt that so it is the brave muscle method, it's not the brave talking method, because there is bravery and there is the muscles in every shape of communication. So that's in a nutshell. But I am very chatty and I've got always a lot to share. And what I share always comes from my own personal and clinical experience. And I do have a YouTube channel. I post as much as I can. So yeah, feel free to go and it's called the Selective Mutism. Well, if you search Anna Biavati, it will come up.
I really appreciate that, and just wanted to share a little bit of our experience with brave talking, because that is the concept that we were exposed to in our SM camp. I think it was called Brave Voices Camp here at a center in Murrieta. And truthfully, it is about communication. It's not about getting your child to talk. And I was really surprised because being ignorant to SM years ago, that the benchmark was not necessarily talking for my kid, it was whispering. She was able to whisper quite quickly. That was what she was comfortable with. And in my mind, I was like, well, does that count? And absolutely it did. So we were able to do exposures in the community where she was willing to, and it's with incentives. She was willing to order her own, drink when we went to a restaurant, and she would whisper it, and the waiter would have to like come in, and it was awkward for me, but she was able to do that incrementally, and then on her own time start using her full voice, which was a lot harder, that was a lot higher bar. So I really appreciate the brave muscle idea rather than the brave talking. Talking is, of course, what we all want them to be able to do, to express themselves openly and freely, and to be able to ask for what they need and share their thoughts and ideas. But there are other ways to do that as well, especially starting out.
Yeah, I think if you look at the body and communication like a pyramid, so as an SLT, we always look at the skills of communication from the bottom to the top. And the bottom is play skills and sharing, and the top are sounds and speech. And I suppose maybe it's my own personal experience and clinical experience that when you see that children cannot even share a piece of the puzzle, you're just thinking, whoa, this is way more. So one of the things that I always say, selective mutism is more than the fear of talking. So if we, I love exposure, but exposure has to come where your child is at. Because if your child cannot even pick up a straw or point to the board of what they would like to eat, never mind using bridges. So I think this is where it's really important that us as the carers, we know our child best. Because sometimes people come to me, and I don't want to criticize anybody in particular, but they come to me and say, my child was pushed to the limit that they're not even pointing anymore. So whereas I say, well, where was your child at? Because if you work with what your child can already do, then communication moves. And this is this is what you've done. So you've taken whispering, which is a superpower, and then you've moved on to that. But there are some kids that they are not even there.
Mhm.
Yeah, we have a question here. I'm going to read it out. Have you any suggestions supporting through school? My 9-year-old has a support plan, but this is really about what teachers won't do. Ask her questions in front of others, etc., but nothing particularly proactive. We did try sliding in last year, but teacher could only do 1 session a week and didn't make much progress.
So shall I have a stab at this one?
And then
So
we'll
my
join. Carry on.
you join. I find this is such an important question about school, because it's where a lot of our kids spend the majority of their time. And I really think it's where we're first kind of drawn to the fact that, oh, our children aren't speaking, because it's often in the context of either kindergarten or school. I also find this is quite a challenging question. It's quite a complex question in a way as well, because you have to think of what school is, and the dynamics of school, and the dynamics of your school, because every school is different, and what their approach is overall on behaviour overall, and classroom management behaviour as well overall, because it's all different and every teacher is different too. I'm actually doing some training in a school at the moment, because I want to understand more of that world and how things work and function in the classroom. So I've had an interesting relationship with schools, with both my own children and helping other children later on with selective mutism and their parents to bridge those connections with schools from various age levels, so 5 all the way to teens. So I feel I've got an interesting perspective, if that makes sense. When we get schools right, we're winning. That's what I've learned in my experience. When the teacher and the school, because it's not just the teacher, understands what selective mutism is, understands that selective mutism is not a choice, understands that selective mutism is not a behavioral condition, but it's physiological, meaning it's to do with the nervous system as well, and it's an unconscious response, and doesn't take selective mutism personally, then we can start, they can start making their classroom trauma informed, if you like. And actually that's something that a lot of countries are talking about now, and in the educational world, about trauma informed practices in classrooms, meaning how we support our learners in the class, and how we create that space in the classroom to be comfortable and safe for our learners, so they can open up. Because that's the thing for our kids with SM, when they go into a classroom, if that environment in the classroom is very overwhelming, and often it is, because you have a large group of kids in there and a lot of noises going on, all sorts of things happening, that can really kind of trigger their selective mutism and shut them down, and they just kind of not shrink away, because my daughter actually never shrunk away. She was the one with her hand up, funnily enough. But it can be quite a difficult space for our kids to kind of grow and navigate in. So the teacher needs to work on that space. Approaching the school, you need a collaborative approach. It cannot just be a conversation between the parent and the teacher. It's not going to work. The teacher has got 25 students in the class, I know, because that's what I was always told. But Toni, I've got 30 kids in my class. It's not just your child I need to focus on. And I used to get that a lot. And in a way, I guess you can understand what they're saying, though at the time I was deeply offended. But you know, the approaches that teachers can take can benefit the whole class. That's what they need to understand. It's not just about benefiting our child, it can benefit the whole class. And so, but you need a collaborative approach. So meaning you need to find out who your team is in your school for supporting learners who have challenges or different needs. I hate the word special needs, so I've deliberately avoided that one. But we have SENCOs, so special needs educational coordinators. In New Zealand, it might be different in your countries, so you have to find out what your country
In
has.
England, it's the same actually, Toni. So they're
Or is it
called
different? We have speech language therapists, as such as you, Anna. We have RTLBs, which are resource teachers of learning behaviour. We have pastoral care as well here in New Zealand. And so you need to go to your school and find out who are the key people in this space who help work with kids who have challenges. And you in New Zealand, I don't know how it works in other countries, but in New Zealand, we contact the school and we contact those people. So I always say to parents, send an email. You send an email and you tag in the principal, you tag in the DP, you tag in the teacher, and you tag in your support team like the SENCO or whoever that is. And you say, I would like a HUI, and a HUI is a meeting. I would like a meeting where we sit down to discuss my child together as a collaborative team. Your child may choose to be present or not, possibly not, but they can be, and I'm all for that as well, especially if they're an older child. And then you sit, because that meeting is about them. How can we support your child in this space? What do they need? So it's not about blame. It's not about having a meeting to go in and say, you need to support my child and do this and do that. And sometimes that's where disconnection can come, because schools are terrified of that. Some schools are really scared of what's called IEPs, so individual educational plans. They take it the wrong way, and that's not what it is. It's, this is my child. Let me teach you about them. Please, can we work together? Where's my village? And let's support my child so she can, or he can thrive, or they can thrive in that classroom space. And then you work on, you know, educating first and building your team first, and then where your child is at. So in our classroom, we have my teacher, I'm not just saying it, but she is absolutely brilliant. She is brilliant because she's got background knowledge as well with Oars kids. So she has some of that background knowledge and with psychology. And she knows when the class seems to feel dysregulated, and it can, because it's a very energized space. And so she will do certain things that help bring back regulation to the class as a whole. She'll read and bring that silence back down. Or she'll say, right, everybody out for a run. And they'll go out, and we're quite fortunate like that in New Zealand. So again, it depends on your school, and they go out and they run. And I'm in a primary school, so it's going to be different to a high school too. But these regulatory kind of practices really help change the mood as well in that environment. And that benefits our kids with SM, because it helps them re-regulate their nervous system. We also have a special space in our classroom where kids can go if they feel overwhelmed, to have 2 or 3 minutes to re-regulate. So it's having some tools, and it's giving tools to your teacher that she can use practically, not just your child, but all the children as well in the classroom. Then she's going to be more inclined to do it, because it's not going to be, oh, I don't have time, I've got all this to do and this to do, I don't have time to be your child's therapist. But actually you're creating an environment that benefits everybody, and your child is going to thrive with that approach. Does that make sense? And I'm aware I talk a lot, so I apologize everybody, but it's a real complex thing.
It is.
So
It's for sure very complex and like not easy to answer in such a short time, but I appreciate it so much, Toni. So we'll go to the next question. It says, what is one thing you think parents need to start doing or stop doing to help their child with SM?
Mhm. Wow. I would say I'm going to reiterate. So I'm going to give you two things. That looks like four. Two things. I would say the first thing is acceptance. I would just say that's a big thing. Second thing is focus on what your child can do. So you want to think about if your child is loving playing football or learning a bike or trampolining, or you're fostering something. So from a neuroscientist point of view, when the brain starts realizing that it can do something really well, then you can teach to generalize. So don't focus on the fact that your child can't say even just one little word. I only want me to say hello to the neighbor. I laugh about it, but that's such a big thing. So focus on really the building of the self-esteem. And do you know what? Sorry, I'm going to add something. Movement. Help them move their body, because when the body moves, there is much, it's the better circulation, better breathing, and therefore better muscles for what the communication will come.
Great.
Thank
And I'll
you,
just
Anna.
say,
Go ahead.
I'll just say I feel like the most important thing is to educate yourself 100%. Educate yourself, like Toni was talking about, find your team. So yes, it takes a village and you might be the head of the village, but you are not the village. And get help for yourself. Learn how to regulate your own nervous system, how to handle your own discomfort with your kids' discomfort. Because one of the things that I did compulsively that I realized actually made it harder on my kid was I would bail her out. Somebody asked her a question and I would answer for her. She didn't have the opportunity to even find other nonverbal ways of communicating because I was constantly stepping in and trying to take the pressure off of her. But what it did was it kept her from being able to, just be awkward. Even if she wasn't able to respond, that was okay. So I realized that I was putting pressure on her to be a certain way, but I was also not allowing her to work through her own discomfort. I was kind of bailing the both of us out. I hope that made sense. So yeah, I would say own your part. It is an awkward thing when your kid is really struggling and you want to fix it, but they're not broken. They just need to learn things differently than other kids who are, verbal more easily. Yeah, so I would say take care of yourself first, put on your own mask, and then you're gonna be helping your kid so much more.
For sure. Thank you, Effie. We have another question. It says, we are in the process of arranging our son to meet with other children with SM. Any tips or advice for their initial first meeting or get together while accompanied by parents?
Say, bring something that they like, because sharing is communicating. That no matter how old they are, balls are really good, whatever shape. Because you're not, I'm sure you've not organized a meeting for a chit chat. You've organized a meeting, or this is I don't know what you would call it, a get together. I like that. For them to see that they're not alone. But at the same time, we don't want to create like that funnel of that spotlight of, here you go, now you can communicate. Is, here you go, let's observe. So yeah, I would say something to share, something to bring, something that makes them feel safe. I would say food. I'm such a foodie. I'm so Italian in that way. But I also know that sometimes food can be anxiety provoking. I'm very aware of the sugar. I'm very much like Toni. I've not studied or decided to go down, the certification route, but food is also really important. So, but some kids with SM are also scared to eat in front of others. So
And particularly scared to speak in front of adults. So I might suggest the best thing you could do is leave them alone, go do their own thing, maybe play a video game or something where the speaking is not a requirement, and let them connect, without the pressure of needing to perform.
yeah.
I agree with that. I like that, Effie. I think you're right. I think don't make it a therapy session. I'm going to do a play date for my child to connect with this other child to, kind of get them talking and work on their SM. Don't do that. Make it fun. They're meeting their mate. And that's what it is. And that's what you say, we're going to meet our mate and pick a neutral place. As well. It doesn't just have to be in your house, or go into their house might be a bit too much, because you have to think about context as well with selective mutism, because our children shut down in different contexts. It's not just, they don't speak all over the show. It's different contexts. They might be able to speak in their friend's house, but not speak to their friend in your own house. They might be able to speak in the park, but they might not be able to speak in the classroom. They might be able to speak on the playground, but again, not the classroom. It's different context. So I think, where is your child comfortable? Where do they shine? Where do they come out when you're with your child alone? What's their favorite thing to do? And then you can invite that child along to that space. And like Effie said, don't umbrella them, leave them. Mind your own business. Go do something else. Socialize with their friend, with their parents' friend, but mind your business. Let them do their thing. And like Anna says, bring in a game, something they can do together, so the focus isn't on their performance. I thought that was brilliant, Effie, on their performance, but it's on them having fun. And be mindful of the time, because it takes a lot of energy to socialize and for social engagement. Some of us are introverts. Like I'm just saying, I'm a bit introverted. I might not come off that way, but I am. And after so many hours of socializing, it's so much energy. I need to go home for bed, man. Like sometimes I need, I need an hour just to recuperate from it, so my nervous system can regulate.
Right.
So think about how in that way. It's like maybe half an hour is enough to start with, or maybe a pop-in. Chunk it down.
Yeah.
See where your child is at, and then chunk that play date down into the minutes, or the time that your kid will feel comfortable in. Hope that made sense. Yeah.
One of the other parents said that they tried this once and the kids happily ignored each other. So that's okay too. Like, if they don't, if they don't click, there's not a chemistry, that's fine. Like my girl tended to do really well in a very small group, just one or two other friends. And I took the lead from her. I didn't arrange a bunch of play dates with people I thought that she should, be in with. It's really, you can see what your kid is interested in, because believe it or not, so many SM kids are incredibly social. They just may or may not use their voices. So I would say take your lead from your kid and take the expectation off of them needing to behave in any certain way with any certain kid.
And that's okay. To do it again if it doesn't work straight away, or because that's again is expectations. What are we going to expect from them? I think that having a fine line is almost equally important, to say that you're there from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock or whatever, because it's predictable. Predictability really helps the management, because again, not knowing who's going to be there, everything then becomes unpredictable, as it kind of is somehow, again, this is the brain again, when we know that we have a time limit, we always want to do more. But as a therapist, we always say, finish the fun before the fun finishes. So then you want to go back to it. So yeah, just defined maybe a time. It's different when you're having a chit chat with your friend and you can chat indefinitely.
That's brilliant. And I hope it's all right to spring off what you've just said, but you've provoked my thinking. Routine is so key for our kids. I don't know about you, Anna and Effie, if you've noticed that, but it seems to be a key thing. They like to, and I'm a person that is terrible. I'm terrible with routine. I've always been, I'm spontaneous and flexible. And that was not actually helpful to my children because they need to know what to expect. They like to know their routine. Where are we going? When are we going? How long are we going to be there for? What's going to happen? And if you can drill them a little bit with that, or help them a little bit with that prior, it will help them relax a bit more, because then they know what to expect. They know what's going to happen, and they know how long it's going to happen for. And give them an opt-out. Such and such is coming over, but if it gets too much, give me a sign or whatever, let me know, and let's work that out, you know. Or if you're going to, like, you know, I get a lot of questions when sometimes you have a family gathering to attend to. They can be tricky ones, and it's like, my child, I've got to go and see some people got really large families, so you know, we're going to see their grandma, their granddad, their uncle and their auntie, and then their cousins. And for a child with SM, sometimes that can be like, it's just so much, because there's so much expectation. As soon as you get out that car, it's like, oh. And for our kids with SM, it can just be a bit too much. It's like, oh, I'm going to have to say hello and thank you, and just that can cause a bit of anxiety. So is that I always think, if you do those kind of events, you know, first of all, educate everyone and teach them to accept your child for who they are as well. Do not put tons of expectation and pressure, and then and build in a plan, like a little escape plan, so they can leave and go regulate somewhere. Or, sorry, jumped on. Yeah.
Thanks, Toni. I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions. So it says, are there any situations where SLTs would not feel it appropriate to help? The local SLT doesn't think it's appropriate to be involved at our daughter's school, even in an observing capacity, and is leaving intervention to the teacher.
So it really depends where you live in the world. And certainly here in the UK, it depends on the experience. Also, there are some trusts that would say we are not involved. So I am a committee member of what we call the National SMSEN, which is the Clinical Excellent Network here in the UK. And we set it up about 8 years ago, just because we want to make sure that we are working across the board, no matter what kind of therapist you are. So it's not just SLTs. So we've got members of the child and adolescent mental health and health practitioners, you know, anybody within the mental health capacity, psychologists, so that we follow a very specific guidelines, so parents feel supported across, and they don't feel, why are they getting this and we're not? So I don't think, you know, I appreciate the word appropriate. I just feel that for me, that I also supervise other therapists, is when we focus just on speech, and we come across a child that struggles with that communication, or it might come across as defiant. If you don't have experience with kids with SM, the word "my work is not appropriate" might come out. I think that from what you were saying, I think there is definitely an element of involving the teacher and the team around the child, exactly as Toni was saying. And I feel certainly that there is what comes out from today is the village. And the village is you have a role, your family has a role, teachers have a role. It's not the therapist. So I often say, I'm not going to see your child, but I'm going to support you in this journey. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to give that therapy is not necessary or appropriate. It just means that I would like this to be a whole change that you're not going to come back. So I suppose when you're always unsure, always just double check and ask, please ask questions and say, can you explain what is it in the district or in your county or whatever it is? Do you not treat kids with SM, and is there something else? Or Toni came up with all sorts of things that I wish we can only do half of them. But the world is full of possibility, and we're always learning from each other. Effie, Toni and I have known each other for ages. Effie and I never. And I get so excited when I'm going, yeah, there is somebody else that knows about SM. So yeah, I think it's a good question, and I would just say ask some more clarifications.
Thanks, Anna. Can you speak a bit about how children recover from SM or improve in different ways? I have an older son, 13, and he has been making steady but slow progress since we realized he had SM. But this was not until he was about 8, as he spoke to peers, so it wasn't picked up at school. A lot of people's experience seem to be that it is picked up when they are much younger, and then children make a full recovery when they are young. It would be great to hear about the recovery of children whose progress is slower.
It's a big one, isn't it? I have so much to say. First of all, I don't think that's true that that most often it's picked up on when they're young. That can be the case, and it's brilliant when it is. But it's often the case where our kids actually get a little older, and then it becomes more, it comes to our attention. And there's so many factors as well. You have to remember our kids, they're individuals, and they all have these individual differences too, right? It's not always just SM either. So there's just a different layer that we won't have time to go into, I guess. But the environment is key, is absolutely key. Your environment and the social environment, okay, and everything. SM needs a holistic whole. Well, when I say holistic, that doesn't mean no medication at all, by the way. I don't want to, because it's true, you might think I'm saying, oh, don't look at medication, and I know some people do, and I'm not advocating either way for or not for meds, so just to make that clear. But what I mean is we need a whole approach for selective mutism, okay? So we need to look at your gut health. Everybody today, go and do a bit of research into nutrition and gut health, because I'm telling you now, there's research that's coming out to show there is a huge correlation between our gut health, our emotional health, and our mental health. And that's what helped my children overcome selective mutism. My daughter was diagnosed at 6. She was born with SM. When I look back, that's just who she is. She's a highly sensitive person. Do our kids overcome SM? That's debatable. Or do they learn to manage SM? There's different levels of SM, and there's different things that can trigger those different levels of SM, if that makes it, for want of a better word, level. So it might be that your child was able to manage through school until age of 8 because they had one peer they could chat to, and they didn't bring attention to the teacher because they could nod or raise their hand or whisper. And then when they got to 8, there was more demand on them to do classroom presentations. And then it was noticed that actually this child isn't as verbal as I would like them to be. And then with that comes more pressure. And then with the more pressure, because it comes misunderstanding, that can trigger the stress response. And then that can make the SM go a degree worse, if you like, or it can get more difficult. I hope this makes sense. It can get more entrenched. And then there's other things that can happen too as your child gets older, because they're exposed to a lot of negativity sometimes with SM because people don't understand what it is. So you have to put yourself in their perspective and what their world looks like to them when they go out every day and they're hearing, why don't you talk? Well, you could say thank you. Don't you smile? I had one random lady say to my daughter in a restaurant once, well, you could smile. And afterwards I had to go out and see her and say, you shouldn't make assumptions. She's not smiling because she's not happy with you or she doesn't know how to be polite. She has selective mutism. So, get rid of the notion that people discover it younger and then they get over it when they're around 8. It's pants. It's not accurate. Everybody's different. And there are adults who still struggle with selective mutism and didn't even know they had selective mutism, and they've struggled with it their whole lives. Okay, so my daughter is 18. She's going to uni now to train to be a teacher. She's overcome selective mutism to the point that she can manage it rather than it's managing her. But she still has some moments where she has to give a whole class presentation. She's like, ooh, and it can shut her down.
Yeah.
But she's learning to manage through it.
Want to make sure, as part of our role is to make sure that people understand. So if they see a child that is not communicating age 3 or 4, they're asking themselves, is this child's multilingual? Why is there not communication? So this is, I suppose, is one of the biggest thing among us. And there are children that would make slow progress, but again, is in perspective. What is slow progress? And I go back to what Toni was saying is the connection between the gut and the brain. But as the brain is developing, and emotionally, we know that boys would tend to be emotionally mature later compared to girls. We're looking at minimum of 25 to 30. So your child is only 8, so it's got a long way to go. But as the brain matures, is not only he's gonna have more vocabulary, but also age 8 is actually developing the sense of self, not just the speaking. He's going to start seeing himself, oh, people are seeing me, what they're thinking about me. So I think that there isn't just one answer, but it's like looking at your child and what do we mean by progress? Is progress only based on how loud the voice is and how many people are they speaking to, or just generally about self-esteem and communication? So I'm going to put back a question just to reflect.
Okay. So unfortunately we're at the end of our session. Time flies. Thank you, Anna, Toni, and Effie for sharing your experiences, and thank you everyone else for sharing your questions. I know that there are some questions we didn't get to answer. If you take a look at the website, mutism.ca, there are parent coaching sessions that are offered by SMF on Saturdays for only $10 or 15 Canadian, or wherever you're from. Alternatively, we'll be having another session after this one from 4 to 5 MST. If you'd like to join that one, you are more than welcome to. And on behalf of the Selective Mutism Foundation, I thank our lovely coaches today for their time, Anna, Effie, and Toni. We have their information posted on the website, mutism.ca, or you can follow us on social media for future sessions similar to this one. And our 4 p.m. session features different coaches. Finally, our annual Selective Mutism Conference will be held on September 27th and 28th of this year at Brock University near the beautiful Niagara Falls, Canada. And more information will be provided on our website, mutism.ca. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day or night and take care.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.